so this is an overview of the federally designated partnership for Wild and Scenic Rivers program and proposals to potentially designate the Peace and Myakka rivers as such under that federal program.
Go forward, or do I click something?
I can shoot down the.
If it's not working, I can advance it, but. I'll point in at yours. Where are you sitting? Okay.
It's already on the first slide.
Okay, very good. Okay, so my name's Jaime Doubek Racine from the National Park Service, Florida Field Office. Home office is in Atlanta, Georgia, the Southeast Regional Office of the National Park Service. And I'm here to talk about the Wild and Scenic Rivers Program. The act was designated in 1968 to preserve the nation's most special rivers for their outstandingly remarkable values and free-flowing conditions. 228 rivers comprising 13,467 miles are designated as of 2022, less than 0.5% of our nation's rivers. Really, to simplify the act, it was, or the reasons the act was implemented and designated was there were a lot of hydroelectric dams at the time. So Congress and the president at the time were very fearful of no protections on the nation's rivers. There was a lot of hydroelectric dam projects at the time. So there wanted to be balance with protection of the nation's rivers, but also understanding the need for these powerful projects. We'll talk about the Partnership Wild and Scenic Rivers program in a minute, which is a little bit different than just a managed river through the federal government with federal lands. And here it is hereby declared to be the policy of the United States that certain selected rivers of the nation, which with their immediate environments possess outstandingly remarkable values. They can be scenic, recreational, geologic, fish and wildlife, historic, cultural, or other similar values, and that their immediate environment should be protected for the benefit and enjoyment of present and future generations. There is wild versus scenic versus recreational segments of the river. If they are to be studied and a future designation applied, are classified into these different classifications of a river system if they were to become designated. So the wild rivers are those sections of rivers that are free from impoundments. You know when you are on a wild section of a river. You don't see anything around you except for nature, basically. Scenic are those rivers or sections of the rivers that are free from impoundments with shorelines or watersheds still largely primitive and shorelines largely undeveloped, but accessible in places by roads. I don't know if that's something I'm doing, but the two designation options for the Wild and Scenic Rivers program are very, very different. There you have the federally administered model. That is the big federal land holdings, most typically found out west. And those large rivers and large tracts of land are managed by either the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That was traditionally our old model, where you would have a superintendent at some of these large land holdings, and the river would be designated this way. That is not the model that the Park Service is using now. It has changed and adapted to this partnership Wild and Scenic River model. That is where the rivers that are designated are managed through locally led partnerships, mostly on non-federal land. For instance, the Wekiva Wild and Scenic River is one partnership river in the state of Florida that is managed through a Partnership Wild and Scenic Rivers program. We are at the table as a collaborator, the National Park Service, but it is all state and locally led and managed. So very, very different modes of management styles. The rest of the partnership wild and scenic rivers are found in the Northeast region of the United States. We have about 18, 19 of the rivers that are managed through this partnership model. I talked with Randy and Viviana yesterday with, hi Randy, with the Water Management District yesterday, and I said, if you were to exemplify a partnership wild and scenic river, it has a lot of the elements of a mini NEP. We operate collaboratively with the local and state jurisdictions on a particular area that's designated. Okay, again, state or locally ownership or management. Local council is utilized to implement projects and programs that would benefit the river. There is funding available through this model. There's a nationwide partnership coalition that goes to Congress every single year with a Dear Colleague letter that is signed off by all of the different rivers that are designated. And we are now funded at about $220,000 per year for each of the designated rivers. And what that gets you at the local level is right now, we are utilizing some of those funds on an eelgrass mapping study within the Wekiva Basin, partnering with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. We are also utilizing those funds for a full-time river ambassador to help out for education and outreach. That is her major programmatic component that she is working on. Taking eco tours on the river, talking to school groups, doing demonstration projects for restoration on the river with communities, working on a dragonfly mercury program project, studying with the National Park Service on that project, et cetera, et cetera. Very beneficial. Also a part-time social media director, coordinator. Why is that so important? It's very important to get the word out because that is what people are using to get their messaging and marketing, especially young folks. So she's working on the Instagram, all social media, Facebook, updating the website. The hits have been phenomenal since we've hired this staff. The third item that we are looking into is law enforcement, especially on those very heavily used times on the Wekiva River. July 4th, you know, when just it's no holds bar out there, right? So here's the benefits of the Partnership Wild and Scenic River Program. We'll talk about the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act and how that the regulatory side of things, but that is not the driver here for a Partnership Wild and Scenic River. Not the driver whatsoever. That is not the way Congress intended the act to be implemented or for Partnership Wild and Scenic Rivers. So we'll talk about that in a minute. National recognition for the Wild and Scenic River designation. You won't have a park ranger at your river, but you will have technical assistance and you will have funding and you will have a collaborative force with you on your river. Technical and financial assistance, it does lend itself to other funding opportunities that otherwise you would not be able to be privy to. For instance, we just wrote a grant to the National Park Foundation, was awarded $50,000. That is being utilized for the eelgrass mapping project that we were just talking about. Then the stewardship and river protection is another component of the benefits of the designation. There is a review of federally assisted water resources projects. However, that is done collaboratively as well. And to give you an example, in the Wekiva Basin, the Wekiva Parkway project, which is a 20-year plus project for the Wekiva Parkway with FDOT, the bridge crossing was going to be replaced. So that did trigger the Section 7 review. And my colleague, Dr. Jeff Duncan, was instrumental in that Section 7 review. And it did not stop the project. The intent was never to stop the project. The intent was just to make the project and the design better. So collaboratively with the committee, we got together and created a better design collaboratively, and that was implemented in the Wekiva Basin. So we talked about the 200,000 per year, 220, and the technical and financial assistance, and provide assistance to the state through their own committee makeup. And that is part of the study process on how the management structure will be organized. That is part of the piece of legislation for either the study or the plan, the congressionally designated act at that point in time. Oh, okay. And so here's the Myakka River. So the Myakka River in the late 70s, early 80s, the National Park Service already conducted a study and deemed eligible for inclusion in the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Program, 34 miles. That would include all of Sarasota County. Now, you say, well, it's 2024. What happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. In the study, it said that the state could be managed or administered through the state. So they went and they took that literally and made it the very first wild and scenic river of the state. So it is right now a state wild and scenic river, the only one in Florida. But there is no reason that it could not have a federal layer on top of that, benefiting the Myakka River watershed and bringing funding to bear as a partnership wild and scenic river. So that is being looked at right now as going forward to get support on a future designation of the Myakka River. At this time, looking at just Sarasota County, not Manatee or Charlotte, because that would need more vetting. The extent of those segments. So that's why the Myakka River right now is up on this slide. There's a lot of support for that too. Okay, the Peace River. It is on the National Rivers Inventory. What is that? That is the National Park Service inventory of all the rivers in the United States that are eligible to become a wild and scenic river. The next step on the process of going forward, if the committee would have favor to this, would be a study, because no study has been done, and there are a lot of unanswered questions about eligibility, river miles, river segments, how many participants, how many counties would want to come on board. That is what is done during the 3-year study process, is all the vetting, all the community workshops, all of the partners. A study just gets the ball rolling for a future designation. You may find that in the piece, there are certain segments that are ineligible. I was talking with Randy yesterday about that, with the binding with mosaic, et cetera. There might be segments that are just deemed ineligible, but that all is worked out through the study process. Okay. Did we want to go through some of these questions or just, okay. All right, so rivers.gov has a plethora of information, everything, all data, a huge chronicle of good data and information on what is a Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. So I strongly recommend if you have time. And I did bring a fact sheet I'll pass out after I'm done that talks about more about the program. But will hunting and fishing be impacted? No. Would a national wild and scenic river designation federalize the river? No. The opposite, the absolute opposite. We are a partner at the table with you on your project. And this is the way a lot of the federal government is going. It's all about partnerships now. I'll be honest with you, my boss from the Estuary program years and years ago when I worked for Sarasota Bay, the first thing he taught me is everything happens at the local level, period. Once you learn that and understand it, embrace it, you're good to go. Okay, I'll let Jennifer probably take over on this part, but there may be questions first. Or did I skip a step?
Yeah, so I'll just reiterate the management committee recommendations policy. So just you, and of course, this is the time to really do fact finding, probing questions and whatnot.
Okay.
Basically, management heard the same presentation, and this is their recommendation to you for your consideration. Okay. They would suggest considering approving support of the partnership wild and scenic designation for the purposes of conducting a study for the Peace River. And as Jamie mentioned, that's when a lot of the things are worked out and it's all voluntary consensus based. I think one thing that you said at management, Jamie, and I'm going to reiterate now, is that that plan operates by consensus, meaning no objection. So every stakeholder has a voice and can actually, if anyone objects, it doesn't move forward until there is consensus. So it requires 100% unanimous consent. So that's how they've been doing it in the Wekiva, working with the Water Management District and other stakeholders. And that is what is being suggested here for the Peace River, is to conduct such a study process, that 3-year process, to engage the stakeholders to explore and work out what, if anything, do we want to do with regards to designation of the piece. Myakka, there is this 1984 study, as was mentioned, and what they felt comfortable recommending to you is the conservative position of only considering moving forward with the recommendation to designate the segment that's already within the Myakka River State Park. All of the river right now is state designated as wild and scenic, but at the federal level, they thought it might be appropriate to start with the Myakka River State Park because there was discussion, and Jamie, feel free to jump in, but basically there was questions by the management committee. If we do start small, can we add pieces later? And they were told, yes, you can. There's no problem starting small. Like if you just want to start with the piece of the river that's already in the state park, and again, the Statewood Park would then be a stakeholder and it would require their consensus for how that is handled. They thought that was a conservative position to start with. And then they wanted to convey to the policy that all of this, they believe, those who did vote in favor, which was the majority of the committee, which they believe to be implementation of the CCNP objectives to provide further protection for these critical resources in the CHNEP area. So they wanted you to consider this, and I wanted to relay that to you on their behalf. I know Kayla's did an excellent job in her committee report doing that as well. But now that this is before us, to have that information, and then feel free to, we have quite a bit of time allocated here, at least 10 minutes, for you all to ask questions and kind of probe to get more information out of Jean while she's personally here.
Do we have questions?
We'll kick it off. Madam Chair.
Commissioner, yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Doherty from Charlotte County, one of the county commissioners. Yeah, when I was sharing with Jennifer earlier that basically when I was going through the minutes of the management committee stuff, I saw that numerous entities had abstained. The 2 water management districts, City of Northport, Fish and Wildlife, it looks like, abstained from the recommendation to go ahead with it. So that I immediately then went to our technical staff, our county assistant county administrator, and she got with our water quality manager. Unfortunately, they weren't able to attend that management committee, so they don't have a clue how this is going to unfold. It sounds positive. I'll just share that with you.
Mhm.
But I'm at a place right now where I can't go one way or the other. I can't abstain, unfortunately. I got with the county attorney yesterday. I'm required, unless it's a personal conflict of interest, elected officials have to vote yes or no. You know, it's just one of those things here in the Florida law. So I would simply request that, it sounds great, but I'd like to get our technical staff to be able to get with the water management districts, all the other parties that were, and just continue this item as far as voting on it to the next meeting, just so we have some more time to study it. That's all. It sounds positive. It doesn't seem to be time sensitive when you look at the Myakka. You know, it was 40 years ago that 12 miles was studied. So doesn't appear to be time sensitive, but, so that's my request today, is that we just give my staff more time to drill down into this thing, make sure this is in fact a positive step. I understand it's a study, but we want to understand more about how the concept of the management thing would be. It seems like, because it's such a regionally based situation, this seems to be a logical coordinator of this. With all the municipalities, all the counties and so forth. I'm talking about the piece specifically. It might be a good idea just to give ourselves a little bit more time so our technical staff can cool down. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to support it today. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. And we have Randy Smith would like to add something.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Jamie, for taking the time to speak with me yesterday. And then I'll just add a little bit of kind of context to kind of the district's position here. And there does seem to be a ton of positive with this. I agree with the prior speaker, but obviously, oftentimes the devil's in the details a little bit, and there is a regulatory component of this, and that just needs to be understood a little bit better. The region is planning on hundreds of millions of dollars of water supply infrastructure. The Peace River is a vital source of surface water, alternative water supplies for the region. We have 2 regional water supply authorities that are not at the table. I think one of them is a member, but was not at the management committee. They may be in attendance today. I do agree that some more time needs to be taken to get some feedback from them and to drill into those regulatory requirements. I know it was mentioned that they are minor, but they do affect dams, water diversions. You know, we're talking about infrastructure for alternative water supply. Does that fit in the mix here or not? And we're in kind of the same place. I think that there does need to be a little bit more understanding of that. I don't feel that all of the stakeholders have been vetted thoroughly, even at this point before moving on to the study. I'm at the same spot today that I'm unable to support this today without some additional vetting and some additional information.
Thank you, Randy. Commissioner Satcher.
Thank you. I had some questions. I kind of missed a little bit about what you were saying with the bridge. Where was the bridge at that you had kind of got redesigned?
The Wekiva Parkway, that is in Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties in Central Florida.
Okay. And then, so kind of y'all's objection came up late in the game, or was it part of the?
Yeah, no objection. It was triggered by an Army Corps of Engineers permitting process. Whenever you have a water resources project, it triggers Section 7. It is a determination. It is not there as a regulatory approach to kill a project. It is bringing the National Park Service in, just like you would with EPA on a NEPA. trigger.
Do you know
Okay.
how long that review, how much time it took for you guys?
Good question. That was a very good question. It did not stall any of the process because, of course, you had the entirety of the Wekiva Parkway in different segments being designed at the same time. So it did not stall any portion of that project. But I would say it was 1 year.
A year?
Yes.
And then, do you have numbers as far as what the change in design, what it may have cost, and also the opportunity cost as far as that year? Do you know what that cost the municipality that was building the?
It was more expensive because of the input of the involvement of the, design features. I could get that for you, but I don't have that off the top of my head. If
Okay.
there was any difference in the design build of our input. Yeah.
And do you have the numbers on how far we are in and how much money and like CIPs, like for the next, say, 1 to 5 years is committed for the Peace River project for drinking water for Manatee, Sarasota, and I believe Charlotte County as well?
Randy says that there was a significant dollar amount of projects outlaid for the piece.
Yeah.
So he made that very apparent. And also, I don't know if I made it apparent yesterday because I was driving from the Wekiva. So I was trying to concentrate on driving at the same time, answering a lot of questions about Section 7. But the Park Service is there to enforce the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act in the best way possible to protect the river values. Okay, so there's something called adverse and direct impacts, and that is what the Park Service is looking at if Section 7 is triggered. It is not to disrupt water supply for local drinking.
Okay.
That is not the aim, the goal. So I think that it is a collaborative approach, knowing that there needs to be balance with water supply and protection of the resource, recreational values, everything that you all are doing and on a daily basis as managers. Yeah.
I would just say, I guess, to the rest of the committee that it seems that despite the presenter's great intentions, which I, hear clearly, and I'm not calling that into question at all. But despite that, I think we do see historically, and even in the news right now, that there can be conflict between local and state and federal interests. To the point that a federal government can be trying to force a state to, put themselves at risk. And then we all know that there is a serious, people are moving and have been moving to Florida, and our water supply is paramount and very important. And anything that would add a year, and I won't even guess at the dollars, to any type of design or anything like that, I won't support today. I won't support in the future. There won't come a time where I'll support it. And because of that, and because I'm very, I feel like the state's been doing a good job. Maybe not perfect. I'm sure that they could do better on some things, but overall, I feel like they've been doing a good job. So for that reason, I guess I'll make a motion to reject this recommendation, or perhaps if it's already up as a recommendation to accept it, maybe I'll call the question and then vote no. So procedurally, I'll let the chair, make the call on how we're going to do that. But I'm definitely going to vote no on this. I'm not going to sign off as recommending this.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So yeah, procedurally, there's no motion that the policy board has made at this point. This is just a recommendation from the management committee, and so there's no here making
So, well, I guess,
forward.
then what happens, I make a motion to reject it. And it gets, say, let's say it gets 1 vote or 2 votes or 5 votes, but at that point, the issue would be dead. Is that correct? Or should I let someone else make a motion to accept it? And then it will still fail because I will definitely vote no.
Commissioner Doherty has some.
Yeah, I was that close to making continue previous. You know, I think that's the logical, I understand the comments made. I think the professionally and wise choice today would be a motion to continue this to our.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm definitely not going to do that because my vote won't change, and I don't see anyone on the Manatee County Committee who would ever vote for this, you know, in the next, in these. So therefore, continuance is just still inevitable. I think we need to rip the Band-Aid off. So I understand. I appreciate the attempt at diplomacy, but I'm pretty immovable on this one.
Councilman Reed, did you-
Good order. Need a motion. You should call for a second.
I'll second.
Yeah, I make a, Madam Chair, I have a point of inquiry procedurally. I can make a motion to vote against it, correct?
Well, we already have a motion on the table right now. So Commissioner Doherty has.
I make
to
amend this motion and I move to approve the recommendation.
I think we can't quite hear
I
that.
appreciate a second. Dakota County or from Charlotte County, I would appreciate a second.
Commissioner Satcher, you're breaking up a bit.
No, internet's just fine.
I recommended the person on the line that understand that there's a motion on the floor here already that's been made. And so your motion.
Hostile amendment to accept the recommendation.
Commissioner Satcher, we can't hear you, and there is a motion on the table to continue this item to the next meeting. So no action.
Then you're going to need to call me. Call me then, because I am making a hostile motion. I'm making a motion to amend that to a motion to recommend or to approve the recommendation. That's my motion.
Okay, so now that's
We're gonna.
an amendment.
The motion maker.
Yeah, that's a hostile amendment. We do this every day.
The amendment has to be, the motion maker has to accept the amendment.
Not if it's hostile. It's hostile. This is a hostile amendment.
There has to be a second to that amendment, Adam.
That, I need a second. Can I get a second?
So we have Commissioner Doherty's motion, and then.
In fact, actually, I would appreciate the chair. I had the floor when this amendment was made. I had not given up the floor. So I did this amendment that was made to continue was taken on my time while I had the floor. So I respectfully request that this amendment be withdrawn and I be given the floor that I waited for. I raised my hand. I'm taking my day off, you know, to be here. So, I mean, I had the floor. The person that made the amendment to continue it did not have the floor. I had the floor.
So I'm trying to remember here how this went down, and I believe Commissioner Doherty.
I believe.
First.
He broke while I had the floor and was asking how I should proceed procedurally. That's when he said, well, I was thinking about that anyway. So, and we've got it, it's on recording. You can record and see that's the way it went down. But I was not done with my remarks at all. And unless we looked at the recording and it was me asking you how to proceed for getting this killed and voted on today, that was my only request.
Still no one has seconded
Say that again?
still no one has seconded this motion, so it's still viable.
Yes, but it is a procedurally wrong amendment or motion. I had the floor. I request the floor, and I make a motion to accept this recommendation.
I would have to second that.
So is there a second for, Commissioner Center's amendment?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have.
And what is that?
Can we restate the motion?
Right, so I think we need a restatement of the amended motion. Commissioner Thatcher?
I think I think he's seconding my motion, which was to accept the recommendation from the board. The recommendation on the floor.
Okay,
That's what he seconded, so we can have a vote on whether or not to accept this recommendation to become a federally overseen.
I don't think that was the recommendation, the recommendation.
That's what I'm saying. That's definitely what I'm saying.
Okay, so can you restate it again then? Because I think we need that to be clarified.
Okay, I can't see the documents of what was recommended to the board. So, but it is, if you read that, that's my so moved.
Okay, so we'll read it for you. And so the management committee recommendation to the policy to approve support of a partnership with Wild and Scenic Rivers designation of the Peace and Myakka River for the purpose of conducting a study of the Peace River, implementing the 1984 Myakka River study recommendation to designate the segment of the river within Myakka River State Park, and implementing the CHNEP CCMP.
So moved.
So, Madam Chair, then a vote against this motion would then open the floor for Commissioner Doherty's recommendation, correct?
You might have to remove.
Nope. It'll be over.
We would have discussion and then someone can make an amendment
Okay.
to his motion. So after we have a discussion.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay. Okay, so now discussion.
For the record, Commissioner Scott Kerouac, Highlands County. So I'm trying to get this clear. Commissioner Thatcher, my understanding is against this committee recommendation. Is that what this motion is? Because who is the motion from to approve the committee's recommendation?
No, there was not one.
There was not.
Nope. That's my motion. My motion's
Well,
to approve.
That is,
Just to continue the item.
but that,
That's not my motion. My motion is to approve it,
Gonna move it.
amended by the committee.
Yes.
He's calling the question for the vote.
Accept the motion. Or against it.
It's overreach.
discussion.
Because if one goes-
You're still not following because the recommended motion is to approve.
Yes.
So, and I mean, that's the motion for sure, is to approve. And it has to be unanimous in favor of it for it to survive and go on and move towards being approved in this 3-year study, to take away our authority and control and give it to the federal government. It would have to be unanimous. And I've got a feeling that once we take this vote, it won't be unanimous. And so this question and this deal to us will be defeated.
Just to clarify, this motion for this body to support that partnership moving forward, but I think Jamie was talking about unanimous. That's a different point. So the NEP are just that it's a majority. Councilman Reed, did you want to ask? I see you. Okay. Other discussion?
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, I mean, I have some questions. We're going to hold this vote. What happens if this is a yes vote? What happens if this is a no vote? Because I think there's been some going back and forth. This should be the first and only motion on the floor. I had the floor, and this is my motion. But I want to make sure that's what we're all on the same page as. This is if this passes 100%, what happens? If it passes 51%, what happens? If it is rejected 51%, what happens? Question here before we make our votes.
Right. I'll answer that question in just a second. Councilwoman White was speaking.
yeah, so this is to study of East River. And that doesn't mean it's going to move forward. That will still come back. Okay, we have a study, this is what it shows.
Approve support of this partnership and this designation. So,
But the study has to be done.
right, that it doesn't, the vote here today does not do anything other than show the support of this body for this designation and the things that go
But it
into
doesn't
it.
mean that we do this is gonna do the study, this is gonna do all those things that it says up there. I'm sorry, I can't see that, but once that comes back, it doesn't mean it's just gonna automatically hop to, okay, now it's gonna be
Correct.
right. So we're still gonna come back, that information is still gonna come back. This is what the study found, and that would probably answer a lot of questions. Right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. I don't know if Jamie or Jennifer wants to add to that.
There's a lot of steps. This was just to get your all support, whether you wanted to even learn more about it, have community workshops. This was the very beginning. You might want to break those two motions apart. The Myakka and the piece are entirely different. One has had a study done many years ago, and one is just being discussed now as a potential for future. There are monumental steps to go forward on either. This is a congressional act. This was only for information at this point in time to this committee, because there are some benefits for local communities and some funding that's brought to bear. This, you might want to break apart your motions with the piece and the Myakka and start with that.
Other discussion?
We can make an amendment to that.
Madam Chairman, Don McCormick, CHNEP Chair. The rules of this committee do not require unanimity on anything. So however we vote on this motion, we would be, if we vote to approve this, it moves ahead in spite of what seems to be the intention of the motioner to have it defeated. And it's a real conundrum for me to figure out how to vote based on that. But am I right? The rules of this committee say if 51% of us vote to approve this recommendation, it goes forward.
The bylaws read, and they are serendipitously in your packet. It says that a simple majority vote of the members of the committee present and not abstaining from the vote is required to approve the annual work plan amendments. And the annual work plan, individual votes and abstentions may be recorded in the minutes. Call vote upon the request of the committee members.
What group was it
Okay,
then? It was said that it would have to be unanimous vote. 100%.
Study, if the study were to proceed, at the construction of the study requires absolute consensus, meaning unanimous vote. This body is operated by these bylaws.
Thank you.
I have a question. So what is it that would need to be unanimous? I know you just said it, but I missed it.
The study that the National Park Service would potentially undertake to explore wild and scenic designation for the Peace River. That study would require all stakeholders to be in complete agreement about what the study includes, what the findings and recommendations of the study are. They are constructed with complete consensus.
Complete consensus, and you find a lot of those river segments out from the designation. That's where you get all of this vetting and discussion and assurances of your water supply, et cetera, at that
Would
point in time. It can
Would
even
that
be
consensus be before the study is undertaken or after it comes back to us, we would vote on whether we like it or not?
you would be at the study table. You yourself would be at the study table every step of the way. Any person that is a vested stakeholder, Manatee, Sarasota, every single county, this is just a tiny step to get locals to start talking about it. But if this were to go forward with a study process, you would be right there every step of the way.
Right, as a representative from your county, I think that this recommendation from the management committee was to show support by the National Estuary Program for the sort of looking into this as an option. So this body does not have to say yay or nay.
If you could read for me the part that does have to be unanimous, read that to me.
That's not part of.
Y'all said it. I didn't make this up. Y'all said it initially. So I'm trying to figure out, well, what were you referring to? Not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to figure out what it was we were referring to when you said, in order to do this, we would all have to be unanimous. And what is it that needs to be unanimous?
It's not this motion.
That was an example for the Wakaiva project, right?
Okay, well, then I withdraw my motion. I withdraw it.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I understand this right, Commissioner Thatcher moved to approve this because he was under the understanding it was going to take a unanimous vote, which he was going to vote no. In turn, am I understand this right?
Right. Yeah, because I don't want this to pass. So that's how I was going to go about it.
Okay, now I have a little bit better of understanding because I'm hearing that you're against it. You moved to approve it, but you're under the understanding that this particular vote would encompass a unanimous vote, which he was going to vote no,
right,
which would have in turn accomplished what him being against this.
Right, and again,
so what we're saying is no to what this would be a majority vote, 51%.
And that is simply.
With me having withdrawn my motion, so I don't believe there's a motion on the floor. I make a motion to continue as the other member suggested earlier. I make a motion to continue this.
And Commissioner Taylor has been waiting to speak.
Deputy County Manager. Commissioner. Filling in for one. Just to clarify, that if it were to approve or the recommendation by staff was that if this was approved today, we're not actually commencing or going forward with the study. We're not binding any action other than just saying we're supportive to continue the discussion. Where future decisions will come to authorize conducting the study, updating another study. Those decisions will come back to this board at a later date to execute. Accurate? Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Doherty.
He's got he's taken the motion to continue. I will second that.
Okay.
You know, I just wanted to clarify, that was precisely, this whole discussion was precisely why I was hoping that we could continue, because I have similar concerns. We're all partners. We're all members of the Peace River Minnesota Regional Water Supply Authority. You know, we share the same concerns. Our technical staffs haven't had enough time even to look at this thing. I respect the fact you probably never support it. I don't know where I'll end up on it, but I just needed more time. So I do appreciate you making the motion to continue. I think it is the professionally correct thing to do, and I appreciate it. So I just wanted to share that with you. But I'll second that motion.
And I just
Okay.
wanted to add, I appreciate that, because when I read that the city of Northport abstained, that was my big question. I thought, why? What was there, why did they abstain from voting? So I appreciate the continuing, so we have an information, time to gather information and come forward. So thank you.
Okay, other discussion?
Polk County also has a water authority that we have a future potential project that may impact
Well aware of that.
Peace River.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that the continuance would happen as well, so staff would be able to look at it a little bit closer.
Commissioner?
Question, can you tell me what was the vote tally from the management committee? Because you said it was a majority. I'm taking it was not unanimous from management?
No, there were several abstentions.
I read some of the notes, but okay,
Don't believe there were any no's. There were just those abstentions.
abstention.
Because originally Swiftmud said no, but later was.
Changed to an abstention. So yes, there were only abstentions and they're noted in the.
Yeah, and I'll just adding context from FWC's perspective. I'm a regional biologist. I'm in marine fisheries management. So recognizing that the piece of Myakka are a little bit out of my wheelhouse, I was simply abstaining so that I could have the opportunity to discuss with more experts within the agency as well as leadership. And preliminary discussions as people are interested, and similar to you, Commissioner, see it. It appears positive, but it's something that I, as representing an entire agency, was wanting to get more information on.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor of continuing this item, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries.